And I know that day she took the heaviest part of my heart, my brother, my father, my family situation, and she took it to her own heart, and she consoled me. My name is Father Dermot Roache. I'm a New Yorker, born and raised in Brooklyn. I come from an Irish family. I'm a first generation Irish American. Our lives were very prayerful. We had a really solid, prayerful Christian home. We prayed the rosary every night, 7 p.m. every night, like clockwork. 3 generations in the house, grandparents, parents, ourselves, in utero. It was a rhythm that we were so used to, and I understood later on the family that prays together stays together. I grew up as an ordinary city boy, as I say, very formed in my Catholic faith. Graduated from university with an English degree, and I began teaching in local public school. I did 16 years of Catholic school and then wound up going into the New York City public school system. I had a girlfriend, longtime girlfriend, and just enjoyed life. But like everybody else, family issues were building up. It's the 1980s, 90s, all that stuff. So my father, at the age of 49, he had a stroke, owned his own business, so that we had to kind of shift who's going to do what. I had two younger siblings that were still both in primary school as well as high school. My oldest brother was a heroin addict. So he was one of those kids that went from beer to marijuana to coke to ecstasy to heroin. And it was the hardest thing to see my mom cry. We began to struggle a little bit more because you had to sort of stretch yourself, but we were still united. And despite that, our faith, I know for a fact, is what really kept us very much together. My brother's circumstances and my father's circumstances was the catalyst for me to come here. In the 1990s, a lot of Catholic pilgrimage agencies had the old-fashioned catalogs. This was before digital world. And I used to be on a lot of mailing lists for different places because I used to like traveling. And I was teaching at the time, and these pilgrim catalogs would come in once a month. And more, this Medjugorje was on the cover of these magazines. As the difficulty at home really began to become more and more challenging. Tommy's heroin addiction, my dad, and a lot of issues of family pain. I felt cold. You'd see it month after month, and you go, Medjugorje. And I knew it. But more and more I felt drawn. And I made a decision that I was going to go, not for me. I was going to go for them. And I believed that at least if I made a pilgrimage, that I know that the Mother of God would intervene. Asked a girlfriend, asked my friends. They thought I was crazy. And the reason why they thought I was crazy, and it did make sense, it was 1996. And all my friends would say, don't you realize there's a war in the Balkans going on? And I'd say, hey, don't you believe in God? So despite my invitations, I actually went to Medjugorje on my own. Driving up the coastline, the Dalmatian coastline, moving further inland and seeing buildings with shrapnel, bullet holes right through the walls. And every so often, these police checks, it was really unnerving. And I would question, you think you did the right thing? And the further we went in on the way to Medjugorje, I began to sense something different. coming in, I don't know, somewhere around the Chitluk area or whatever, when you're coming in toward the valley, there was a palpable peace. And then I said to myself, you did the right thing. The week in Medjugorje, my first week ever, was a mixed bag of emotions. I never felt so invigorated, alive, excited, and yet in trepidation. And my trepidation was what my baggage, my petitions, my offerings. Where am I going to leave them? Am I going to leave them on Apparition Hill? Am I going to leave them on Cross Mountain? Am I going to meet a visionary? I didn't know, but I knew that what I carried with me, I knew I had to leave there. That I knew. Three things I do remember in the course of that week. One, I had an understanding of Our Lady's peace, or Jesus' peace through Our Lady, the Queen of Peace, resting in the middle of where you saw Interpol, UN tanks. The other thing I could definitely tell you that touched my heart, I remember meeting Yakov and his wife. They had a house there, and he was just so ordinary about his sharing. And the third thing that struck me, and actually blew my mind, was the cues for confession. I had an excellent confession here, in a way where I began to understand carrying that burden. I didn't need to climb a mountain. I could even place it in the sacramental confession. So there were three major components right there that, as the week began, that I began to see something very different and something very special about Medjugorje. I remember leaving confession, and the next day we had climbed early in the morning Cross Mountain. And that evening we went to the evening prayer service. I was sitting under the tree, the last tree across from St. Leopold's statue. I remember it as clear as day. And we were praying the rosary. Nothing was developed. There was all just the pure earth. And as the rosary continued throughout, we came to the point of the apparition, and they ring the bells, just to let everybody know this is a moment of silence to open your hearts to gospel. And it was at that moment I felt Our Lady. Two hands went on my shoulders. It was beautiful. And there was this warmth that entered my entire being, from the crown of my head right down to my toes. When it was finished, I know the rosary was still praying, so it had to be over a minute or two. Just this gentle little squeeze on my shoulders, and I left. What didn't leave was that peace. And it has never fully left me ever since. I don't know. I don't think one could ever describe in words, but it instantly changed me. I started to cry a lot, to the point that evening where I thought I was going a little bit. It was so beautiful. The following day, I went back to confession. I met the same priest, and he says to me, "What, did you murder somebody?" I said, "No, you don't understand." And I had this beautiful sharing with him. And he said to me, "I think you have a taste of what it is like to be unconditionally loved." I never forgot those words. And it was that priest who taught me right there what spiritual direction was. He advised me, please, when you go home, seek out a spiritual director. And he kind of explained, I hadn't a clue what it was. And he asked me to find a place of adoration, like these chapels of perpetual adoration. I left Medjugorje a very different man from the man I came. I received something more than I wasn't expecting to receive. I was able to leave all my petitions, not at any mountain, but it was at that moment I left it in our heart. And I understood as the years went on that she's so close to us. I don't know why I felt her hands. We don't need to feel her. We don't need to experience a physical touch. But to know that she is closer than you and I actually think, actually know, matters. And I know that day she took the heaviest part of my heart, my brother, my father, my family situation, and she took it to her own heart. And she consoled me. Not knowing that I think she gave me an extra gift. So I went home. And everybody began to realize, oh, Dermot is different. And I rapidly was becoming more different. Within a few months, my desire to seek priesthood suddenly happened. Something that was kind of shocking to everyone, including myself. And I eventually sought out the priesthood. And I really had to make a decision between two beautiful vocations. Do I wind up getting married, or do I wind up serving God in a whole new way? But that's why I think in hindsight the priest's prophetic word was seek out a spiritual director. Figure out how to discern this. And Our Lady stood by me the whole time. The whole time. Hence, I joined the Society of African Missions. I'm not a diocesan priest. I'm a member of a missionary congregation. We're known as the SMA Fathers. Our founder was recently elevated to venerable by Pope Francis, Bishop Marian de Breziac. And my life has been dedicated, my vows have been dedicated for the development of the Church of Africa, the work of the missions in Africa, where I spent 11 years. 11 years. Great, fantastic years of my life. Giving the joy and the consolation that was given me. Medjugorje, and that first experience of Medjugorje has allowed me not only to become what I call a Marian priest, because I need her in my life. I need Mother in my life. But I became very Christ-centered, more than I was when I came to Medjugorje. My life I have to have adoration every day. The grace of Medjugorje has given me that inner strength to be more and more of a Christ-centered, solid shepherd who's willing to give his life for his people. It has also made me very compassionate. I think in a parented tone. There's a lot of wounds out there. There's a lot of pain out there. And I came with pain. But I left knowing that pain will always be taken with great love and compassion and be transformed into something greater. My brother is sober today. He's one of the best guys in the world. My brother is sober today. That's only through the graces of Medjugorje. A lot of people prayer and that offering. My dad had got very well, spent the last 30 years of his life rebuilding his life as a stroke survivor, and is alive today, and has visited Medjugorje himself with my mom, climbed Apparition Hill in gratitude. So Medjugorje has truly changed my life, changed people around me, made my family far more. We were a strong family of prayer. Made my family really on fire with their faith right now. It doesn't change the situations around us, but the peace that she offers has allowed us to face the struggles and the crosses with hope, with triumph, with joy and courage, And that for me is the greatest blessing.